Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Lisa, and I represent Marion Manor, part of the Diocesan Health Facilities. We have 5 nursing homes, and Marion Manor is in Taunton. And I am here to introduce John Rogers, who is he is the program director of the Alzheimer's unit at our home in Fall River called Catholic Memorial Home. And he's been a social worker for just about 30 years, I believe. And he does a great job in our home, and he does a lot of presentations, and he's actually pretty funny, so I think you're going to enjoy him. So without further ado, John Rogers, and if anybody would like another fruit cup, just kind of raise your hand and I'll bring you another fruit cup. Enjoy.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this elderly couple are in the grocery store, and they run across an old friend of theirs. And the gentleman's telling his friend, he says, my wife and I went to a restaurant last night. It was fantastic. He says to his friend, he says, the prices were dirt cheap. He says, the service was impeccable, and the food was fantastic. So his friend says to him, well, what was the name of the restaurant? So the guy says, oh. He says to his friend, what's the name of that flower? It's got thorns on it and it's often red. So his friend says, a rose? He says, hey, Rose, what was the name of the restaurant we went to last night? So between my joke and the title of today's presentation, whoops, I lost my keys, I think you figured out a little bit what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about memory loss. And just to talk a little bit about myself, I'm a social worker. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to talk to you about the scientific medical aspects of memory loss, but I'm going to talk to you about education that I've received in the past 25 years of primarily working with folks who have Alzheimer's disease or dementia or what we call memory loss issues. I've been to thousands of conferences. I've spoken with many, many family members. I'm a support group leader. I've been doing that for about 15 years. And I just came back from the annual Alzheimer's conference was last month. And one of the workshops that they have are latest research updates, because I always like to know what's new out there. So I'm going to share a little bit of information about you guys, with you guys. We're going to talk about memory loss. But before we do that, we do need to talk a little bit about Alzheimer's disease. And you'll see why. Just the first couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about Alzheimer's, and then we're going to get into memory loss a little bit further. We'll have plenty of time at the end for questions, so please don't hesitate to ask me any questions at the end that you might have, okay? There are currently 5 million people in the United States suffering from Alzheimer's disease. And this figure is expected to more than triple to almost 16 million people by the year 2050. 2050 is not that far away. There are 2 major reasons why these figures are being predicted. So why do you think they're suspecting we're going to jump from 5 million to 16 million by the year 2050? Anybody have any ideas?
People are living longer.
Thank you. Number 1 reason. People are living longer. At age 70, 1 out of every 10 people have Alzheimer's disease. At age 90, it jumps up to 1 out of every 2. The fastest growing segment of our population in this country are people turning over the age of 80. There are some statistics that say there are more people turning over 80 every day in this country than there are babies being born. So as you can see, we're going to have this huge influx of population. And just a little side note, that's why you didn't hear much about Alzheimer's disease 50 years ago, because people didn't live that long. They didn't live to the point where they were going to get the disease. So that's the major reason. One other reason, though. One other reason why the United States government and the Centers for Disease Control are predicting these outrageous numbers. Anybody have an idea? I'll give you a hint. Any history majors in the crowd?
Baby boomers.
Excellent. Good job. What's your name?
Jay.
He's a star. These 2 gentlemen now. Jay, you're 100% right. The baby boomers are coming. The baby boomers are a huge influx of our population that happened after World War II. And those folks now are between the ages of, 65 and 68, 69. So in the next 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to have this huge influx of people at the age where they can start developing Alzheimer's disease. That's some scary stuff. The disease itself lasts 8 years. on the average. From the time somebody is diagnosed until the time somebody passes away, the average is 8 years. That's a long time to be sick, if you think about that. Alzheimer's disease is costing this country billions of dollars per year in nursing home cost, hospital cost, medication cost, adult daycare costs, caregiver burnout costs, pharmaceutical costs. You think about it. If it's costing this country that much now, what's going to happen in 2050? Our healthcare system is not going to be ready for this huge influx. There is currently not a cure for Alzheimer's disease. There are a couple of medications that are on the market that are designed to slow the progression of the disease down. You probably see them advertised on TV. Exelon, Aricept is another one. And they're designed to slow the progression down. They're not cures for the disease, okay? So keep that in mind. Matter of fact, I just want to share something quickly with you I just learned at the Alzheimer's conference. The last medication that was put on the market to help slow the progression of this disease down was actually done 12 years ago already. So in the last 12 years, there's been no medication advancements designed. There's a lot of good research coming, but we're not quite there yet. So that's the scary news. And that's what we're not going to, I present that to you so you can get an idea of what's going on out in there in our healthcare system. That's the scary news. The good news is that because the Centers for Disease Control and the federal government are aware of these numbers that are coming, there's a lot of money that's being put into research to find a cure for Alzheimer's disease. A lot of money. We have to. Our healthcare system is not going to be ready for this. So we have to. Anybody know what the first symptom of Alzheimer's disease is? Anybody?
Losing your keys.
No, you're close.
Isn't it losing your sense of smell?
Nope.
No?
Memory loss. More specifically, short-term memory loss. I have interviewed people through the years who could tell me what they wore to kindergarten 70 years ago, what the color of their dress was, who their kindergarten teacher was. But if I asked them what they had for lunch 20 minutes ago, no idea at all. The disease begins in the section of our brain that controls short-term memory. And because of this memory correlation to Alzheimer's disease and all the research that's being done, they're learning more and more about memory. And that's what I'm here to share with you today. Some of the things that they're learning about memory that can help you and help all of us, okay? So think about it. The money's there, they're doing the research, it's one of the first symptoms, and all of a sudden they're saying, bingo, what's going on? One of the first things that they're learning is that some people have better memory storage and recall than others. Some people are great athletes, some people are very artistic, some people are very good with numbers, and some people just have better memory, recall, and storage than others. They're learning these type of things. I'm going to share a lot of personal stories and professional stories when I talk. I'm a big believer that you can learn from listening to people's stories. And I want to start by sharing a story, an interesting story about my father-in-law. I met my father-in-law to be at the time, I wasn't married to my wife, 32 years ago. And I remember walking into their house and there were sticky notes all over the kitchen cabinets. And the kitchen sticky note said things like, get gas for the lawnmower, cut the grass, put out the trash on Thursday. And I remember saying to my wife-to-be at the time, I said, what's this? She said, that's my father. He has a terrible memory. He has to write everything down. And I remember saying to myself, ooh, that's not really normal to have to write it to that extent. Well, I'm here to tell you, 30 years later, my father-in-law is 84 years old, and his memory is no worse or no better than it was 30 years ago. Just an example of somebody who did not have good memory storage and memory recall. It's interesting to know, but it is. One of the other things that the research is showing is that, and you guys may be able to relate to this, as we get older, our memory is not as good as it used to be. Am I right? And the reason why this is kind of good news is, when I first got into this field many years ago, the Alzheimer's Association said that memory loss was not a normal part of aging. what they said was if you were suffering from memory loss, you had something wrong. Now they've done a 180, and now they're saying as we get older, our memory is not as good as it used to be. We have cells that store memory. The cells are not as healthy as they used to be, and we struggle a little bit with memory. Do you guys agree with that as we've gotten older? Absolutely. My mother's funny. She's 81 years old, and she's got this group of friends that she's been friends with for 50 years. And she says, John, we get together, and one of my friends will start telling a story and then forget where she is in it, and then another friend will start with another story and forget. And she said, it's so interesting we all forget. And it's true. As we get older, our memory storage and our memory recall is not as good as it used to be. Anybody in this room have any stress in their lives? Nobody? No? All right, let me reframe the question. Does anybody not have any stress in their lives? Stress is you don't have any stress? No? Are you married? Are you married?
Yeah.
You have stress, okay? I've been waiting for somebody to say that. I was going to call them up here and say, are you married? Do you have children? Do you have bills? You've got stress. Stress. Actually a contributing factor to memory loss. There's more and more studies coming out that are showing that. Think about it. When you're in a stressful time in your life, whether you're dealing with a sick parent, a sick child, or you're going through a financial crisis, or you've been in a bad accident, or you're going through a divorce, very, very, very stressful. And our brains can't handle all the stress, which affects our memory, because we can't store all that information in. So keep that in mind. And I'm not even talking about the major stresses in life. I'm talking about the little stressful things that happen to us every single day. Whoops, I lost my keys. We're back to that. Has something like this ever happened to any of you? You come home from work, you're walking down the walkway to get to the house, and you can hear the phone ringing in the house. So you struggle to get your keys because you want to answer the phone, and you unlock your door, and you run to the telephone, and you have your conversation on the phone, and you hang up the phone. The next morning, you get up to go to work, you can't find your keys anywhere, right? You start looking everywhere, on the bureau, under the floor, you start looking everywhere. And then finally you realize, oh my God, I got to get my spare key. I'm going to be late for work or my appointment or whatever. And you take the spare keys and you walk out, and outside the door, there's your keys hanging from the night before. And what's the first thing we say to ourselves? What's the first thing we say to ourselves? Thank you. I'm losing my mind. But we forgot about the stressful little situation that happened the night before. And we beat ourselves up. And then what happens? We get even more stressed, so we forget even more, right? But it's true. Classic, I tell this story, and I saw it in true person at work. Years ago, I used to work with a social worker. And every day she would come into work, and she'd put her keys in the corner of her desk. My desk was right behind hers, and she'd go about her business. So this one day she came in and she said, oh my God, I'm running late. I got to go to this meeting. I'm late for this meeting. And she tossed her keys. And when they did, they hit the corner of the desk and they fell into the trash can. And she went off on her business. And I saw it. So I took the keys out of the trash can and I put them in my pocket. So at the end of the day, she came back and she said, oh my God, where's my keys? I can't find my keys. Her name was Sherry. I said, Sherry, think about what happened this morning. She said, I came in. She said, I was late for my meeting. I put my keys in the corner of the desk like I do every morning. I said, no, you didn't. And I reminded her. She didn't even remember tossing the keys and them falling. Think about it, because her mind was on something else. And instead of beating ourselves up, we need to sometimes look back and say, okay, what led us up to that particular episode? And I think many times we're going to realize it's got nothing to do with our memory. How many times have you folks gone down the cellar to get something and you're halfway there and you totally forget why you're going down there? Okay? What do you think? What do you think that happens? Thank you. Your mind is not going down the cellar to thinking about getting that can of coffee or whatever. Your mind is thinking about what am I going to make for supper? What time is my husband going to be home? How am I going to pay the bills? Your mind is elsewhere, but your body is halfway down those stairs. And then once again, what do? We beat ourselves up, right? which just kind of adds to it. So keep that in mind. Very important piece. A lot of the times memory loss is related to brain overload. And I tell people we need to slow down. American society is rush, 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 this and that, right? How about lack of concentration? Another thing that they're learning about memory. We don't concentrate on memory. We take memory